Welcome to the second presentation in the series where we're looking at the book of Ecclesiastes. A book characterized as a person searching for meaning in life. The book of Ecclesiastes. In the last presentation we saw that this book is indeed a puzzle. You may have puzzled over why it's in the Bible. You may have puzzled over how to interpret it. Do we take it at face value, or is there something deeper within it? And we saw last time that this book is a particular kind of literature. And once we see the type of literature it all starts to make sense. It's called fictional autobiography. The writer adopts the kind of pseudonym of someone famous who was very clever. And the writer, or perhaps better, the speaker, the one who gathered people to himself and spoke to them, he was exploring the meaning of life. What's it all about? Applying his mind and his brain to the deep questions of life. For many today, life just seemed to be a crumpled mess. Confusion, uncertainty, purpose not easy to see. And perhaps for many in life they would share the words of Kohelet, the gatherer of people, the speaker, when he said meaningless, meaningless, all is meaningless. For many today, life is characterized by frustration, which is a way to interpret that word meaningless. Frustration. We can't see what it's all about, what the purpose is, and therefore we're not quite sure how to react, how to take decisions. The search for meaning. The road of life. Is there meaning on that road? Is there purpose? Is there something that makes sense? Let's go along the road of Kohelet, the gatherer of people, the speaker, and see what his mind reveals. That's the type of literature. It's not dishonest. In fact, it's a sign of respect. A later author places the words in the mouth of another more famous individual of the past. In the book, there's a prologue, an epilogue, if you like, a preface and a final comment by an editor. You can see from the style that they are quite different. And that's typical of this kind of literature. The first few verses are written as a kind of preface, a summary of the main themes, a prologue presented to us before Kohelet, the speaker, launches into his analysis. And at the end, just a few verses, there's a kind of epilogue, a comment. And it's that comment that throws light on how we should interpret this book. Because it comments on the main themes and indicates there's more to it than meets the eye. So let's look at the book that way. Let's start with the prologue, or the preface, if you like, the editor's comments. It says the words of the teacher. That's Kohelet, the speaker, the one who draws people to himself. The words of the teacher, son of David, king of Jerusalem, identifying with somebody long gone. Meaningless, meaningless, says the teacher. Utterly meaningless. Everything is meaningless. What do people gain from all their labours at which they toil under the sun? Generations come and generations go, but the earth remains forever. The sun rises, the sun sets, and hurries back to where it rises. The wind blows to the south and turns to the north. Round and round it goes, ever returning on its course. All streams flow into the sea, yet the sea is never full. To the place the streams come from, there they return again. All things are wearisome, more than one can say. The eye never has enough of seeing, nor is the ear its fill of hearing. What has been will be again, and what has been will be done again. There's nothing new under the sun. Is there anything of which one can say, look, this is something new? It was here already long ago. It was here before our time. No one remembers the former generations, and even those yet to come will not be remembered by those who follow them. That's the preface, the summary. It draws out the main themes that the writer of this book, the speaker, Kohelet, the gatherer of people to himself, as he's trying to study and think about meaning and looking at the world around. Now notice, this tells us that this is the preface written by somebody else. It's in the third person. It speaks of the words of the teacher. Son of could just be a descendant of David. He's identifying himself with somebody famous of the past, perhaps Solomon. But if you look at the verse 12, you can see it changes. Now we've got the actual writer of the book, Kohelet, the gatherer, the speaker. I, the teacher, the Kohelet, the speaker. I was king over Israel and Jerusalem. I applied my mind. I have seen all things. It's now in the first person, and that's characteristic of what he says. He's identifying himself with somebody famous of the past, a sign of respect, but he's looking out at the world around and trying to make sense of it. As it were, he's speaking his thoughts out loud to people gathered around him. That's the picture we've got. You can perhaps see it sitting at the gateway or the marketplace of a small community in a small town. People gathering around, and a man of great ability applying his mind, giving his thoughts, speaking out loud, playing with ideas, trying to make sense. Sometimes going all over the place and contradicting himself, but he's trying to make sense of the world around. Let's fade that out. That's the preface, that's the introduction. I want to draw out the main themes from that. What the preface is saying is that there's an endless cycle of ceaseless but useless change. And it leads nowhere. Just goes on. Day after day, month after month, year after year, people come and go, nothing new, just keeps going on. It's a cycle of hard work as people struggled to earn enough to keep themselves afloat. And of course, in those days, almost everybody was involved in agriculture. Life and death just keep recycling round. There doesn't seem to be any purpose or direction to it. If you like, history just keeps repeating itself. Nothing new. He looks at the world of nature, the cycles of the sun, the wind, and the water cycle. Just keeps going on. No point, no purpose. And a kind of summary of the idea is what has been will be again. What has been done will be done again. If you like, life is purposeless. There is no meaning. It just keeps going on. People do the same things. They make the same mistakes. They go on with the same kind of patterns. The same kind of occurrences occur in the world of nature. Cycles on. People are born. They work. They die. They're forgotten. Other generations move on. There are no new ideas. No new developments, nothing to generate hope or excitement, just endless, pointless cycles and repetition. That was very much the world of the day. And for many people in the world today, it is still their world. With all the massive advances that have become from the sciences and the technologies, then we're living in a world where change is always happening. And yet in a sense, it's the same thing recycling. We're making as human beings the same mistakes, the same errors. We do the same foolish things. Life recycles on. People come, people go. They're forgotten. Life moves on. What has been done will be done again. The pattern is not that different today. That's the message of Kohelet, the speaker, the gatherer of people. Everything is meaningless. Life is one great frustration. What a sad picture. But as he looked out on the society of his day, that's what he saw. And the editor who wrote the preface summarizes what the speaker has been saying, based on what he's seeing. There are beginnings, but it's all meaningless, one great frustration. And if you look behind the scenes in so much activity in the West today, meaninglessness, frustration, they are characteristic descriptions of much that's going on. But the question has to be faced, is that all there is to life? Is there nothing more? Is there no purpose, no direction, no development? What's it all about? Is it just an endless cycle of birth, work, life and death? These are the questions that the speaker is addressing. Now that's the introduction, which just gives a summary of the themes that Kohelet, the gatherer of people, the speaker, addresses. At the end, the editor comes in with a comment, and again it changes from the first person back to the third person. Meaningless, meaningless, says the teacher, says Kohelet. Everything is meaningless. That's the summary of the entire book. And the editor has flagged it up as his comment. But he goes on. He's complimentary about the teacher, but at the same time, he hints there's something more. Not only was the teacher wise, but he also imparted knowledge to the people. Yes, he gathered the people and shared it. He talked out loud. He pondered and searched out and set in order many proverbs, and there are many proverbs in the book. The teacher searched to find just the right words, and what he wrote was upright and true. It was an honest attempt to try and make sense of life. He compliments the teacher, Kohelet, the gatherer of people, on what he's done. But there's more to it than that. The words of the wise are like goads. They're collected sayings like firmly embedded nails given by one shepherd. Be warned, my son, of anything in addition to them. You see, as we reflect on what Kohelet, the speaker, says, we feel uncomfortable. It prods us. A goad prods us. It's uncomfortable. It's like a nail sticking into us. We're being pushed around because he asks searching questions. He addresses very deep issues, and there aren't easy answers. He doesn't get the answers. And we're left feeling uncomfortable, disturbed. So there's a warning there from the editor. Just be careful how you handle this. And then he points out of making many books there is no end, and much study wearies the body. You can go round and round and round thinking about these issues, and you get nowhere. There must be something better. That's the hint that the editor is saying. And he comes to his conclusion. Now all has been heard. Here is the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the duty of all mankind. For God will bring every deed into judgment, including every hidden thing, whether it is good or evil. Now that is more positive. He summarizes what the teacher has been saying throughout all these chapters. The teacher has gathered a group around him, and with his great intellectual power has looked at all sorts of aspects of life, seeking for meaning. Not been too successful, but it's an honest attempt, and it's applauded. but it makes us feel uncomfortable. There's more to it than this. You can go on talking forever, writing forever. You get nowhere. But there must be more. And then at the end, there's the hint of the more. There's more to it than the teacher, Kohelet, the speaker, the gatherer of people. There's more to it even that brilliantly clever man has come up with. There's something more. If you like, the summary of the entire book is this. What the speaker has been saying is there is no meaning to life. Everything just happens by chance. He has no consciousness of anything after death. He's not sure. Nothing after death. He accepts God as creator. God has set the universe in motion. He's, as it were, wound up the clock and left it running. But we don't have a clue what he's doing. We can't understand it. So given that situation, what Kohelet the speaker is saying, make the best of what life gives you. Do the best you can. Try to eke out a living, survive, bring up your family, enjoy what pleasures are available to you. Don't expect too much, just take what's there. And accept that at the end of the day, we all head the same way to a grave. That's what the book is saying. That's what this teacher has presented to us, searching for meaning. But the editor hints, wait a minute, there's more to it than that. And so he compliments Kohelet, the speaker, the gatherer of people. He pondered hard. It was a process of great thought and integrity. He did the best he could, but he didn't get the total answer. True wisdom is uncomfortable. So watch what you listen to. Make sure it's giving the correct picture. And if you like, weigh the evidence. That's a strong theme throughout the Bible. Weigh the evidence. The world around us needs the landmarks. It needs a sense of meaning and purpose. We've lost our landmarks in the West. And we, the people of God, have much to blame for this. We have not declared them clearly, and we've not been united in the way we've declared them. We've spent time and money playing religious games, running religious systems, and we've not addressed the big issues that society is facing. And we're reaping the whirlwind today as the landmarks are being erased and we're being marginalised. It's a challenge to us. It's uncomfortable. It's like a goad prodding us in the search for meaning. Our world needs meaning. But watch the dangerous ideas. Weigh the evidence. This is uncomfortable. There are not easy answers. That's what the editor is saying to us. It's a challenge to us. And we've got to ponder it. And we've got to make sure that in unity and in a sense of purpose, we're living by God's landmarks. And we're making them available to a generation which has lost its way. Let's look at that last little bit a bit further. All has been heard. If you like, that's it. You've heard the whole story. That's the end of the matter. But, wait a minute. Enough of what this great man, the teacher, has been saying. Let's get back to what's really important. This is the central focus for humans. So he is leading us, the readers, to something more than the teacher, the gatherer, Kohelet, has raised, after all his great intellectual power. Now the word fear there is not a fear of terror. It's a fear, the word means respect and honour. We respect God. And we keep his commandments. Now that speaks of relationships. The way God has been pictured by Kohelet is that God is distant. God is in his heaven. He's set the world in motion. He's wound up the motor, if you like, and he's left it to run. And it goes round and round and round through the cycles, purposeless. Keep his commandments? No. The editor is hinting here strongly. God is involved in his creation. He knows what's best for us. Commandments are not there to give us a rule book. They're there to give us a framework for living so that life can be good, life can be better, life can be rich, life can have meaning and purpose. Live our lives the way God intended is what he's saying. We can't work it out neatly. We need God's help. And we need a relationship with God to get that help. God is not distant. God is involved in our lives. And the last little bit there, what that is basically saying is, God knows what is happening. God knows the problems. God knows the lack of justice. God knows the exploitation. God sees the rich getting richer, the poor getting poorer. God sees the people being oppressed. He understands. And somehow, somewhere, he will put things right. The word judgment, we so often think of God being a kind of heavenly policeman, ready to slap a court order at us. That's not what the word means. The word carries the idea of God putting things right. It means that our actions have consequences. Yes, that's true. And we'll have to live with these consequences. But God's in the business of putting things right. Now, the book doesn't go far enough to show how or why. Indeed, throughout the Old Testament, they've got little conception of life in the context of life and death and resurrection. But the concept of God putting things right in this life is very definitely there in the Old Testament, and it continues on into the New. God's in the business of interacting with us human beings. He's interested in what's going on. He wants us to live our lives the way he intended, because that gives us rich and fulfilled lives, lives with meaning and purpose. And God's in the business of putting things right. The editor is pointing forward to something much, much better. Now, if we look at these last few verses, the whole style and tone is very different. It's moved from the first person to the third person. It's positive. It's pointing forward to something positive. It's full of hope and it's practical. The message of the book. Here was a brilliant man. With integrity, he looked at the world around, trying to make sense of it. But largely he failed, although he said some very wise things. But the editor in his comment points out there's more to it than just searching and looking for meaning in life. Meaning comes in life when we get God back into the frame, not just as a distant creator, but as someone who's involved in our lives today. Now that's a different concept. And if we look at our Western society today, the vast majority, we're told, still believe that there is a God. But God is at a distance. God is someone who's made the universe, yes. But not a God with relationship. Not a God who's involved in the things of life. Not a God who's involved with us. We have, as the people of God, to share that and get it going. Because that brings life with a purpose. It brings life that now has got meaning. We may not understand everything now. Our brains can't work things out. But there is a purpose and there is a direction. There is a longer term goal. God's in it all. And the hint all the time is that death is not the end. The picture is not clear what it involves. But there's more to life. than just being born, working hard, dying, and being forgotten. There is hope. There is purpose. There's something better. And we have a responsibility and task as the people of God to grasp that, to share it, to come into unity in sharing that, to work together, to live it out, and then to start to give the landmarks to our societies and communities that will bring hope, meaning, and purpose. Yes, the hint at the end is that life is a road of purpose, and we have a task to find it and move into it. The editor talks about fearing God. The starting point is relationship. He speaks about keeping God's commands. Not a rule book, but God has given us the guidance because when we live life the way He intended it, it has purpose and meaning. And the central focus of all life, this is what it's all about. In the original, this is the whole of mankind. This captures it all. It puts it all together. Get God back into relationship. And we start to live the way that brings purpose and meaning. God has an overall agenda. He sees it. He's involved in it. He's in the business of putting things right. This gives us hope. It gives us a message. It gives us a future. We looked at the crumpled mess of life. And in our societies of the West today, the landmark's gone. The tide comes in and out. We don't know where we're going exactly. We're just wandering off into the distance. Our societies need future, direction. People are asking what life's all about. Well, some are. And Kohelet is applauded because he asked the questions, and so must we. Kohelet is pretty rude about people who can't be bothered. So is the editor. He asked the questions. Where is meaning? How do you find meaning? He didn't get all the answers. But at the end, the editor has pointed to some of the answers. He paints a picture. How often that is simply true. I've seen great men of God who suffered greatly through life circumstances. Life is unfair, but the answer lies in how we handle the unfairness. For many today in the world, life is incredibly tough. Refugees fleeing, oppression and abuse of people, false imprisonment, false accusations, torture, public executions. Life is tough. That's the picture he's painted in his day, and much of it's still true today. He saw life holding no purpose. He couldn't find it. And we'll explore in this series some of the ways he searched. He could see life leading nowhere, and he saw life just ending in death for all. The end. Goodbye. Forgotten. He came to that conclusion. The editor summarized it as that: meaningless, meaningless, all is meaningless. Humanity in those days had lost the landmarks of life. And in many ways in the cultures of the world today, humanity has lost the landmarks of life. Meaningless, meaningless. All is meaningless.